Well, a left-wing think tank in the US has identified words that the left invented, but they now want to ban themselves from saying. It's quite the list. Let's check it out. So I'm sure you haven't heard of Third Way. According to their website, Third Way is a national US think tank and advocacy organisation that champions moderate policy and political ideas. They say our work on the centre left acts as a critical bulwark against political extremism. And under the heading Our Work, they say we design our work to resonate with the moderate American majority and empower a centre-left coalition that is broad and deep enough to both win majorities and govern. But you only have to have a look at their website to see that they are pretty well radical left. They even have a section on marriage equality, highlighting how they transform the approach to so-called marriage equality. They say, quote, we launched a coordinated effort with a handful of key organisations in the LGBT movement to understand how we could start convincing a lot more swing voters to pull the lever for marriage. After several rounds of deep psychological and public opinion research, we found that marriage conjured for voters thoughts of responsibility, obligation, fidelity, and commitment. No one said anything about rights. That revealed a huge disconnect from the arguments marriage advocates were making, same-sex marriage advocates that is, which focused on the 1,000 plus federal rights tied to marriage. And when we probed further, we found that people who believed gay couples married because of love and commitment were much more likely to support marriage equality than those who thought couples were motivated by rights. We realised that to move the needle, we needed to convince Americans in the middle that gay couples wanted to marry for the same reason any other couple does, not to get a tax break, but to make a promise of lifetime commitment and fidelity to the person they love. The problem with this argument, though, is that polygamists and group marriages also may want lifetime commitment and fidelity. So why aren't they campaigning for group marriage? They also have a section on abortion and, ironically, rights. Although I thought they just said that the rights argument doesn't work. Anyway, as you can quickly see by the 4 latest articles here, they're strongly pro-abortion, reproductive rights, reproductive freedom, that's to kill the unborn child, protecting abortion, but not protecting the unborn child, and protecting access to be able to kill the unborn child in the womb. They've also got a page on marijuana. Under their section on marijuana, again, the focus is clearly supporting legal weed and using the smokescreen of medicinal marijuana as well. All the usual arguments and large sections of comments on LGBTQIA++ stuff, including, and it's interesting they use that label LGBTQIA++. You'll understand that in just a minute when we go through this list. They also have a section called How to Talk About Gender Affirming Care, which is code words for how can we chemicalize, castrate, and confuse more young people in the name of ideology, not in the name of science, care, and compassionate truth. But it's their most recent piece on their website that has raised eyebrows. Entitled, Was It Something I Said? It says this, and it's addressed to all who wish to stop Donald Trump and MAGA. And it's from Third Way. And they say, for a party that spends billions of dollars trying to find the perfect language to connect to voters, Democrats and their allies use an awful lot of words and phrases no ordinary person would ever dream of saying. The intent of this language is to include, broaden, empathize, accept, and embrace. The effect of this language is to sound like the extreme, divisive, elitist, and obfuscatory enforcers of wokeness. It's a great statement, isn't it? To please the few, they say, we have alienated the many, especially on cultural issues, where our language sounds superior, haughty, and arrogant. Why the tortured language? After all, many Democrats are aware that words and phrases we use can be profoundly alienating, but they use it because plain, authentic language that voters understand often rebounds badly amongst many activists and advocacy organisations. These activists and advocates may take on noble causes, but in doing so, they often demand compliance with their preferred messages. That is how birthing person became a stand-in for mother or mum. And if we don't think more carefully about our language, they say many in America will be banking on help from Donald Trump and Republicans because Democratic levers of power will be few and far between. And they go on to say, in this memo, we are putting a spotlight on the language we use that puts a wall between us and everyday people of all races, religions, and ethnicities. These are words that people simply do not say, yet they hear them from Democrats. Well, we can replace the word Democrats with Labour, Greens, Te Pāti Māori, most of the legacy media, and most government-funded organisations such as universities, ministries of health, etc., and commissions. So let's look at the words that the left came up with, but they now want to ban themselves from saying. And remember, this is all because the radical left has got so radical that normal, sane people want nothing to do with them anymore. And it's why Trump won. It was actually this advert that they believe swung the election away from Kamala Harris. Thank goodness.
He murdered a father of 3, sentenced to life in prison. Kamala Harris pushed to use tax dollars to pay for his sex change.
I made sure that they changed the policy so that every transgender inmate would have access.
It sounds insane because it is insane. Kamala was the first to help pay for a prisoner's sex change.
The power that I had, I used it in a way that was about pushing for the movement, frankly, and the agenda.
Kamala's agenda is they, them, not you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Yeah, now, of course, we have our own version, especially Green MPs, or should I say, used to be Green MPs.
Struggling to find their new seat? It's way up the back there in political Siberia, the loneliest place in Parliament. But not for Darlene Tana.
Not at all. My pronouns are they, them. I never walk alone, in fact.
Back in the House 100...
Yes, never walk alone. And there was also this classic in the UK when the Cass report came out condemning puberty blockers for the harm that they were doing.
Good afternoon to you, Shivani.
Good afternoon, Julia. You know my pronouns are they, them. How are you doing?
Yeah. Thank you for telling me your pronouns. I use correct grammar, so the only thing I would need to refer you to is to your face would be you. But I'm not being rude. You can choose your pronouns. You can choose what you want to call yourself, but you don't get to require me to use incorrect grammar and factually incorrect things. You're not a plural. You're a one person, and you're a female person. So I will use she and her. Thank you very much.
Do what you like, I guess.
Well, there you are. You didn't.
Do what you like, I guess.
Well, there you are. You didn't need to tell me then, did you?
Maybe I'm just making sure people know in case they're watching and they want to refer to me respectfully.
Okay. So this list from Third Way is especially for people like her, they. Okay, so under the heading, therapy speak, it says, these words say, quote, I'm more empathetic than you and you are callous to hurt other people's feelings, end quote. And so the words they want the left to stop saying is privilege, violence, as in environmental violence, whatever that is. Actually, our speaker last week at the forum, Kirrily Smith, knows all about that one. She called a transgender bloke, who's a biological dude, called him a bloke, which was deemed violence by the court. Dialoguing, othering, triggering, well, that's a used one, microaggression, assault, invalidation, progressive stack, haven't heard that one, centering, safe space, which is basically anywhere lefty groups gather, holding space, and body shaming. And they conclude, they say, be aware of words proliferating in elite circles that have closed off open conversations and have made it uncomfortable for many people to engage in hard topics. Heck, that's just about their whole argument. And then we get to seminar room language. They say this language says, I'm smarter and more concerned about important issues than you. Your kitchen table concerns are small. So they want the left to stop saying subverting norms, systems of oppression, critical theory, cultural appropriation, postmodernism, Overton window, heuristic, and existential threat to, for example, climate, the planet, democracy, and the economy. I mean, they've basically highlighted every word that we critiqued in our critical theory fact sheet, which you can get off our website. And they conclude by saying when we use words people don't understand, studies show that the part of their brain that signals distrust becomes more active, undermining our ability to reach them. And then under the heading organiser jargon, even their titles are lefty jargon, aren't they? These words say we are beholden to groups, not individuals. People have no agency. So they want to stop saying things like radical transparency, small d democracy, barriers to participation, stakeholders, the unhoused, food insecurity, housing insecurity, person who immigrated. They say Democrats or people on the left can fight for the poor, the hungry, the homeless, and immigrants more effectively if they speak in everyday language and in the language of those most affected by these issues. Well, that's an excellent point, isn't it? Here's the best list, though, and this is where they get in the most trouble by alienating any normal thinking, sane person. So under the heading gender orientation correctness, these say, quote, your views on traditional genders and gender roles are at best quaint. And so they want their side to stop using these terms. Birthing person, inseminated person, pregnant people, chest feeding, cisgender, dead naming, heteronormative, patriarchy, and LGBTQIA+. I mean, wait, what? They aren't allowed to use the alphabet soup anymore? Okay, and then they say standing up to MAGA's cruel attacks on gay and transgender people requires creating empathy and building a broad coalition, not confusing or shaming people who could otherwise be allies. Yeah, classic. And then under the heading, the shifting language of racial constraints, these words signal that talking about race is even more of a minefield. You will be called out as racist if you do not use the latest incorrect terminology. So they want people to stop using, or the left to stop using, and these are pretty well American words, aren't they? Latinx, BIPOC, is it? Allyship, we hear that one, don't we? Intersectionality, obviously, and minoritized communities. They say, as we fight racism and discrimination, we should reflect upon whether the words we are using are part of the reason Democrats or lefties are losing support from all non-white voter groups. We must know when to take a step back and listen instead of peppering our websites, fundraising asks and newsletters with sociology buzzwords. You know, it's a pity the Disinformation Project weren't around at the moment, because I would email them right now to share these lists of words. They'd have no words left on their website. You know, I mean, really, made up nonsense words would be a better label rather than calling them sociology buzzwords. And then just finally, under the heading explaining away crime, they say this says the criminal is a victim. The victim is an afterthought. Okay, this list of words is especially for the Green Party, right? And so they say they should stop saying things like justice involved, carceration, incarcerated people, maybe just call them criminals, involuntary confinement, involuntary. No, it's based on what they did. They say people deserve to feel safe where they live, work and go to school, and we can't defend the progress we've made on criminal justice reform or hope to make more unless we acknowledge that reality in plain terms. Okay, well, that's actually good thinking. Acknowledge the crime. And then they conclude, quote, as a catastrophe of Trump 2.0 has shown, the most important thing we can do for these people and causes is to build a bigger army to fight them. Communicating in authentic ways that welcome rather than drive voters away would be a good start, end quote. Well, my hope is that the leftist radicals will completely ignore this advice, call it complete madness, and will continue to alienate every sane, normal, common sense member of society with their inane words and concepts and insults. And look, they do it for two reasons. They throw these words for two reasons. One, they have no decent arguments. And secondly, they think that by labeling you with negative connotations, that you'll shut up. Disappoint them. Ignore the labels. They're now telling themselves to stop using them. But I suspect that radical groups like the Greens and Te Pāti Māori and the media and academia won't be able to adhere to these guidelines. I mean, if they did, they'd probably run out of any words that they could use, and they'd actually have to come up with decent, rational statements. Well, good luck on that.